Hi friends, it's Becky and I have another little bead weaving tutorial to you today. This is going to be a continuation of the tutorials that I already shared with these earring designs, bezeling 14mm cabochons that came in the Dollar Bead Box for May of 2025. I also used some of the Czech class beads that came in this box in order to do this, and I'm going to be bezeling today the 16mm cabochon that came in that box. Now the method will be very similar to the way that I bezeled this one, but there will be a few differences. So I'll put a link in the description below to that tutorial if you want to follow that. This one will be different. We're going to make this into a pendant, and then I'm going to be stringing it on to a necklace. So the first part of this video will be the tutorial for the bead weaving and turning this into a pendant. The second part of this video will be stringing it into a necklace. Now for the pendant, I'm going to be using, again, this 16mm cabochon. It's Czech glass cab with this beautiful little splatter, gold splatter on it. I'm going to be using some 11/0 seed beads, and I've chosen these galvanized golden fleece color because it's a nice soft gold that matches really well with the gold splatter on here. I've got some 3mm fire polish beads, and I used 6 for each of these. I'm going to be using 7 for the pendant, and then I've got some of these 6mm melon beads. They also have a bit of a gold splash on them, and they're going to be part of the embellishment on this pendant. There were also some 8mm melon beads that came in the bead box, and I'm going to be using those in the necklace but not in the pendant. So I'm going to move those out of the way. I just wanted to clarify that I'm using the smaller of the two different versions of melon beads that came in that bead box. There was also some of these Lucerna bicones. I'm going to be using one of these in this pendant design, and then I'll be using several more while we string it up. So let's get started. I've got a length of beading thread attached to a beading needle. I'm using a size 12 beading needle, and I've got about a wingspan's worth of Fireline, 6-pound Fireline on here. So I'm going to find the end of my thread, leave myself enough tail to be able to tie with, and I'm just going to hold the end of my thread so that when I put my beads on here, they won't get in the way. I want to make a circle with my seed beads that's going to be at the back of this cabochon. So I'm going to pick up 21 of these seed beads onto my beading needle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. I want it to be able to form a circle that is a smaller diameter than the back of this cabochon. I used a smaller amount of beads when I did this on the 14mm, but I wanted to make sure that my number was a multiple of 3, and that's going to be a perfect fit. So now that I've got that looped around, I'm going to make a little tie right here. And I am going to be reinforcing this as I go. For the next part, while I start building up, we'll go back through this at the same time. But first I want to tie a little bit of a knot. So right over left and then left over right. But on the way through this one, I'm going to go through the loop twice with the end of my thread. That gives me a surgeon's knot, which I feel is fairly secure. Alright, I'm going to move my needle 1 bead over from where the knot is, so I'm not coming right out of that one. And I'm going to pick up 5 11-ohs on my beading needle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to skip back from where this is coming out of. I'm going to go backwards. 1, 2, 3. And just between that 11-oh and the next one, I'm going to scooch my needle in and then go through those 3 11-ohs that I just skipped over. And that makes a little loop there. And now I'm going to progress around the circle by going through the next 3 11-ohs. And I'm going to pick up 4 11-ohs on my beading needle now. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to sew into this first 11-oh on my loop, and then those same 3 11-ohs that I just went through to progress. I'm going to make a second loop. That second loop will share this 11-oh next to it. And progressing around the circle, go through the next 3 11-ohs. I'm going to pick up 4 11-ohs, and I'm going to do this all the way around the circle. Pick up 4, sew into that first 11-oh from the loop, the next 3 11-ohs, or the same 3 that we just went through, and then progress through the next 3 11-ohs. I'm going to do this until I get to the end because the last loop is going to be a little bit different. One, 2, 3, 4. Those 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. The next 3. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so this last loop is going to be a little bit different. First I'm going to go ahead and go through those next 3 11-ohs. Make sure I'm coming out of that one. There we go. And here, instead of picking up, let me get my thread untangled. Nope. That loop just, there we go. So instead of picking up my next 4 11-ohs, I'm going to sew up through this 11-oh from that first loop that I added. And then I'm going to pick up 3 11-ohs. Once my thread is through. 1, 2, 3. And then go into this first 11-oh from the last loop that I added. And then back through those 3 11-ohs that I had just gone through. There you go. Now this is going to go up and around the work. It's going to make a little crown, but not yet, not until we get all of these circled through. I'm going to go back through this 11-oh that I went through twice because I want to get up to one of the groups of seed beads that are up on the top, these loops. We've got a center 11-0 where you have your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or these little groups of 3. I just want that one in the center. I'm going to get my needle coming out of that. Give myself a little bit of a tug on the thread to tighten up those little guys. And now I'm going to need to do another group to build up along the sides. Wrong way. Some height along the sides of this bezel. So, let's coming out of this middle one here. I'm going to pick up 5 more 11-0s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. And I'm coming out of this middle bead here. I'm going to find the middle bead on the next loop and just go right through it. And then pick up 5 more 11-0s and do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then on that next loop, find the middle bead, one right there in the center. It started making a little mandala shape. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Find that center bead. Starting to take some shape. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Center bead, and I'm just going to keep going all the way around doing this. Until I come to that last little gap that needs to be filled. That was the first step up that I did to add that loop. I'm going to need to add another loop here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to go through that same 11-0 that I was coming out of. Then I'm going to travel up into that loop so that I'm coming out of the middle bead there. It's going to allow me to step up to that next level. I'm just going to try this out on here. I believe I am going to need one more level up because this is a thicker cabochon than the one that we bezeled before. So I'm going to do another group of 5, again going right into this middle 11-0 on each of the subsequent loops. This is a bit like netting. I mean, I say a bit, but it's pretty much exactly like doing netting. somehow getting lost in what I'm doing, maybe. All right, last one. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come up out of that middle bead on that next loop. So it's going to step me up to the next one. And now that we've made our little jacket, let's make sure we're fitting. And yeah, I think that that is going to fit just fine on the way up here, but we're going to want to cinch this closed around it. So I'm going to add my 3mm fire polish beads in, and I'm just going to pick one of these up. See, I'm coming out of this loop. I've got my center bead that I'm coming out of there. That next loop of beads, I'm going to go through the center one there, the number 3 bead, and when we pull this tight, it'll cinch it right up like that. So I'm going to wait to pull it tight until after I get all of these in place and I can set my cabochon in there. But I'm going to pick up just one of my 3mm fire polish and go right into that next center bead on each of these loops. All the way around. And here's the last one. I'm going to go through this 11-0 and that next fire polish bead. And I'm going to set this in here and start cinching this closed while I've got that in. Alright, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each of these 11-0s and the fire polish beads at least 2 more times so that I get this. You can push the beads together with your fingers around the cabochon. It'll actually help cinch it up even better. Oop, it's moving while I'm doing it. It's alright. Just hold on to the cabochon and the beads. There we go. We made it such a pretty little outfit to wear. Oop. That's scooched over a little bit. So now that that has been well and truly reinforced and tightened up, now I'm going to go back down through this work towards this little junction here. This needle, or this seed bead that's right in the junction between this loop and this loop. Right there, you can see it's a little cross all the way around. I'm going to be cutting out of that one. I'm going to pick up one of those 6mm melon beads and go right into that next bead that's right at the center of that crisscross section. And it's totally fine if this thread is showing, because we will be adding a few things to that. Actually, no, wait, I forgot. I want to add a seed bead in between there. Alright, let's start over again. Alright, so I'm going to pick up an 11/0, that melon bead, and an 11/0, and I'm just going to travel across to this next 11/0 right there in the middle of that junction, that cross section, so that my melon bead is just kind of sitting out, protruding like that. So 11/0, melon bead, 11/0, and right into my next little guy over here along here. We are embellishing around the edges. And here's my next one. Melon bead, 11/0, and I'm going to go through again that one right there in the junction, that center bead. And now I want to reinforce these by going up through that first 11/0 that I added next to my melon bead. And right here in the center you can see you've got that one that we went through to add them, the ones that I added, and then over here on the other side this one. I'm going to add a whole other 11/0 here into this little junction. I'm going to go here. I'm going to turn this over because it's going to be easier to see. Going to go into that next 11/0 right there between those melon beads, back through that 11/0 that we went through the first time. Alright, and then up through that 11/0 next to the melon bead. Oop. Don't drop your needle, friends. So it just makes a little point there between them. And then through the melon bead, and I'm going to go down through all 3 of these 11 that make this little triangle here. I'm going to add a 4th 11 just like I did in the other so that it pops up by going through all 3 of those one more time. See how the melon beads are a little bit loose? They will tighten up as I add more 11 around here. After I've done my last one, I will meet you back here. I'm going to make sure that I get an extra one of these points between all of my melon beads. Alright, so now that I've got all of my little points made, I progressed through the next melon bead next to my last point so that I'm coming out of it. And I'm going to pick up 6 11 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on my needle. And I'm going to go back through that melon bead that I'm coming out of. So it's going to make a loop of seed beads along the top, over the top of that melon bead. Alright, like that. I'm going to pick up 1 11 and go through the 11 that makes that little point in between these. There we go. And then pick up another 11 and go through the next melon bead. And then pick up 6 11 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and go down through that melon bead that I'm coming out of. And then add an 11 between the melon bead and the point that I just added in the last round. Add one more 11 and go through the next melon bead. I'm going to keep doing this all the way around. Alright, so here's the last melon bead. I'm going to go all the way around it. And then pick up an 11 and go through that middle bead in between there. And then I'm going to add an 11 and go up through that little halo that I added over the melon bead. I'm going to just follow this all the way along here. Go through all 6 of these beads that we had added on the outside of this melon bead. And then through these 3 beads in the middle, in between the melon beads. Like that. And this is how I'm going to just reinforce that section. Of course, make sure you're not catching your thread on all of your other beads when you do that. I'm just going to follow this all the way around until I have met this section again. I only really need to reinforce this once. I'm not going to need to go through a couple of times, just once for this part. But then we're going to add the last little bit that's going to make it possible for us to string this onto the necklace. Now I feel like this looks a little bit like a little flower. I'm not mad about that. Okay. So that's the one that I started with. So I'm actually going to go through the melon bead to this next little section of 3 right here. Actually, no, that's not the one. This is the one. There we go. Alright. So now that I'm coming out of that melon bead, I'm just going to get this little section of 3 beads between the melons. This bit right here. I'm going to grab this bicone, and we are going to fit it right in here between these. Alright. So what I want to do is go up into these first 2 11-ohs in the little halo part. Go through this bicone, go down through these two on the other side. Let's make sure this fits. Okay, good. Alright, and I'm not going to be putting any seed beads on either side of this because we're going to be putting the bead stringing wire through here, and there may also be some seed beads on that I'm stringing on the beading wire. But I do want to reinforce this, so I'm going to go through all of those beads once more, those middle 3, and then the first two of this loop, and the last two of the other loop after I go through the bicone. I just want this to be attached, and that's how I'm going to be stringing it, is through that bead. You could also make a bail with some seed beads, or add a wire guardian. This is not the only way to make a pendant that you can string, but it'll be pretty fun because the beading wire will just go right through it. Alright, so now I need to get this wire, get my thread back down into the work, and then tie it off. So I'm going to go through this 11-0 here, and then this guy in the middle. Through this thread path, then this thread path, and then this thread path. Just doing a half hitch knot here before I join it with its tail end, just for a little extra security. You can just tie a series of half hitch knots through the work somewhere else. You don't have to go back to this tail thread, but it's very conveniently still left out, so I am going to progress over here towards it if I can. Some of these beads are awfully tight together, which is totally fine. That's makes for secure beaded work, but it does make it sometimes a little more difficult to proceed through with your needle. There you go. Just gonna tie this off. And then grab my thread zapper. And then we can start stringing this. So let me get that all finished up. Alright, so that's the pendant. And just for reference, this was the earring design, so it is a little bit different. There were a lot of similar techniques done through it. Once again, I will have the link for this in the description below if you wanted to do the earring ones. But let's go ahead and make our necklace. Alright, so this is what I was thinking for stringing. I've got my pendant in the middle, and then I've got each of these sizes of slash beads. I've got 6 each, so 3 up each side, and then we're going to have a little bit of difference in size, so it'll be big one, big one, little one, all the way to the end. I'm going to put these little bicones in between them as well, and then I'm just going to use some of these 11 seed beads that I used in the pendant as sort of spacers to separate out some of these beads on the beading wire. So I'm going to grab a jump ring and lobster clasp for closures. There we go. So we'll use those. And I've got some beading wire that I want to use. One of my favorite colors of beading. I love colored beading wire. It makes me really happy. It's this turquoise color beading wire. It's going to be perfect to go with the turquoise color we've got here. I have some 2x2 crimp tubes that I'm going to be using with my magical crimper. It's my favorite way of crimping. You can do taco style crimping, any style of crimping that you'd like though. That will work just as well. And then I've got a chain nose plier that I'm going to be using for opening and closing my jump rings. Alright, I move those out of the way. Oh, the last tool that I'm going to need is some flesh cutters. I'm going to be using that for cutting my wire. I will be working off the spool initially, though, because that is one of the best ways to make sure that I don't use too much wire, or that I don't cut off more wire that I'm going to use. So what I'm going to do is put my pendant on first, and I'll work up one side, and then once I've got that all out there, then I'll know how much to add. And you can see right here, just adding that little bead in as part of my pendant just makes it so much easier to get that strung on there. Alright, now I'm going to pick up 1, 2, 3 11-ohs on my beading wire and then string my next bead. And I'm just going to go in this order all the way up and along. So 1, 2, 3 11-ohs between this and the next one. And now if you want to fast forward to how I finish it, you can totally do that. I'll put a link to finishing the necklace if you want to get to that. Or you can just hang out with me while I'm beading. I do know a lot of my friends enjoy that in my videos. They like to just turn on my video and spend some time with me, and I don't mind that at all. But this is going to be a really, I think, really pretty little necklace once I am done with it, with these little Czech glass beads in between the seed beads. I do really like sometimes just having seed beads as a little separator between my beads, like that. This was a really fun bead box, I think, with the turquoise colors, the aqua, the gold. There's actually a lot more beads that I haven't even used yet from this box, but I was really wanting to use those cabochons more than anything. And I am so pleased with the way this turned out. One, two, three. One, two, three. here's the thing, is if I get one side of this necklace all strung up, and it's still a little bit too short, while I may not have any more of these gold splash beads, I still have more of these bicone beads that we can do that. We could just run some 11/0s up the side and around the back. One, two, three. Two, three. Alright, I'm going to do a fit check real quick, and to do that I'm going to hold this up where I want it to be. This is probably not going to be long enough, and that's totally okay. I am going to need a few more of those bicones. Let me grab them out of my Dollar Bead Box. Where did I put you? There it is. I have plenty more of those, so we can extend that up around the back of the neck. Oh, I've already got 3 on there. I don't need to do that again. There we go. Three. Alright, after this one I'm going to do another fit check. Let's see if it is long enough at that point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I do like odd numbers for some of my beading things. Don't ask me why, I just really love odd numbers. That's okay. Still not quite long enough. One more of these though. That will do. You can also just add an extender chain when you're adding your clasp and stuff. If you're like, nope, this is the design, that's where I want it to end. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. There we go. That is going to be long enough for me. So now I'm going to make sure I have enough here at the end to be able to crimp with, and use my bead stopper here to hold my beads on my wire. And then I'm going to snip off an equal amount of wire on the other side so that I can start stringing the rest of my necklace over here with the rest of it. I love that so much. Stop and admire your work, my friends. Two, three. This bead box gave some serious beachy vibes when I opened it. I was not mad about that. With all of the golds and aquas. Some sandy colored beads in there too. It was a pretty nice box, and there's still more we can make with it. This was the main one for me though, was this guy. I like to compare the side that I'm doing with the side that I've already done, because sometimes when I do a comparison, I might notice that I missed a bead or that I'm like 2 beads short on something. Most of my friends who watch this, they also notice these things, and sometimes they notice things that I don't. So it is always appreciated. But I think this is good. Right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, I think I am actually going to be using all of my bicones except for this one. Wait a minute. Am I going to use all of them? 1, 2, 5, 6. Okay, so I do have 2 more left over. Aside from these ones. 1, 2, 3. I could use them in some earrings. Different earrings. Probably using some other beads to go with something else. Alright. Let's double check that I am even on both sides. Yes, I am. Yay, symmetry. You know what? With those 2 extra bicones, I am just realizing that I just need a little extra space on there. That's going to be just a little too tight for me. So I'm going to just add those into my necklace. Oop, I've already got those on there. 1, 2, 3. And on the other side. One, two, three. There we go. Perfect, perfect, perfect. I'm just doing another fit check. Alright, so let's make a loop with this wire using one of these crimps, and then I can use the jump ring to attach my lobster clasp to it. like using a nice solid 2x2 crimp tube. That is what works with my magical crimper. If you've never seen a magical crimper, let's scooch in so you can see how I do it. It has this little concavity in there. So what I'm going to do is put the crimp on my wire, fold my wire back through it, make sure I'm leaving myself a little loop. And I find with this specific wire, it's got a really durable nylon coating on it, so I never have to use wire guardians. It's also very flexible, so it doesn't kink when you do this. So for me, this is one of the reasons I like using both of these, is so I don't have to add extra things like wire guardians and crimp covers and things like that. I can just have it strung, have a little crimp on it, and it's ready to go. So what you want to do with this is center that crimp into that concavity, give it a little smush, and it smushes down just those corners. Turn it 90 degrees, make sure it's centered, give it another smush, and then keep hitting it from different angles. Usually I keep it in here and open it and then turn it, because that way I can make sure it stays centered each time I do. And then that will smooth out all of those corners on the crimp, leaving you with a nice smooth little ball of crimp that blends right in with these seed beads. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side with my wire. But before I do that, I'm just going to twist up this necklace, because that'll help pull up some slack in the beading, and it'll make it so that it's not super tight, because you know, you don't want a stiff necklace, you want something that drapes, something that hangs nicely. There we go. Make myself another little loop, and on this other end I also like to use my fingernail just to give myself some space between the crimp and that next bead. That way the crimper can fit nicely in there, and you don't have those beads either getting in the way of the crimp getting centered or getting smooshed by the crimper, because that is something that it will do. I have broken seed beads with this when I had too many on, or the wrong kind or something like that, just to get them out of the way. Alright, now we have a complete, well, not completed, I don't have a clasp on this yet. Let's get a clasp on. Alright, which side do I do this? Usually, this is the front, so this will be the right hand side, and I like to put the fiddly end of my clasps on my right hand side because I am right-handed. So I'll usually put the lobster clasp on that side. Make sure the lobster clasp works. Yep. I'm a big fan of lobster clasps. They're secure, they're easy to use. There we go. Slide that closed. Then I'm going to put this ring on the other loop. It'll just give me something to attach the lobster clasp to. There we go. Nice and closed. Alright. I'm going to put links to Dollar Bead Box if you're interested in subscribing. It is a frugal dollar bead subscription. It is one of the less expensive ones, but you'll always get such a great selection of Czech glass beads in that bead box. They also have an add-on subscription that I enjoy getting. That's where these fire polish beads came from. It is the Dollar Bead bag, and it's only like $8 for 8 strands of fire polish beads that are curated to go with your bead subscription. So It is absolutely one of my favorite bead subscriptions, and I will put a link as well as a coupon code that you can use to get a little bit off of your first box. I think it's $2 off, which is still a decent percentage off the price because it is such an inexpensive bead subscription. But I'll put those in the description below. You can follow them if you wanted to sign up. That would be great. If you don't, that's fine. But I really enjoy this as one of my subscriptions, and I'm happy to share it with you. The bezel, like, you can use any other beads, like 6mm beads and 3mm beads instead of these if you wanted to use something that you have instead to do this bezel. You're going to be fine fitting it in with some other types of beads. But I really enjoyed making these and figuring this out for my friends. Until next time, happy beading.